Hi, everyone. Welcome to Installation Basics, How to Get There Before You Get There. My name is Rachel Krull. I am a senior designer with Sedgwick Business Interiors in Rochester, New York. I've been with them for a little over 5 years now, and I have been using CET that entire time. Before we get started, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. Outside of being a dealer designer, I am also a wife, a mom, a stepmom, and a pet mom. I have a 10-year-old son who you can see in the upper left-hand corner here. He recently played Scar in his school play, The Lion King. I made the costume, so I'm having a little bit of a proud mom moment with that. I also included a picture of my 2 dogs. I have a German short-haired pointer and a one-eyed Australian cattle dog. Jules is the German short-haired pointer. Indy is the cattle dog. I'm also a runner. I recently completed the Rochester Half Marathon, my second one. And in the upper right, I've included a picture of me and my husband. We actually just got back from a wedding in France, and we took this really fancy picture, like we owned the whole place. Then the last picture on here is of me and my design team in the Rochester office. I just wanted to give them a special shout out. We actually participated in a charity event called Product Runway, where you are teamed up with local manufacturers and are challenged to make a fashion piece out of like building materials. So we have fabric, wall covering, and laminate. And that is what we use to make that. And they wanted me to tell everybody that we won an award for best use of materials. They're really adamant that I let everyone know. So moving into all this good stuff I have for you. So I want to give you an overview of this presentation. My purpose behind this is hopefully to give you a holistic approach in creating installation drawings. We're going to focus on practices and processes that are going to make this easier for you. So we're not going to really deep dive into any specific CET functionalities. So we have 5 major sections. The first one being planning for success, incorporating installation considerations from the start. If you got it, use it, integrating seed and template files. Let's expand pre-made pay-per-views and visibility settings. Additional ideas and considerations. Talk about it, collaborative approaches. And then at the end, we might have some time for Q&A. Let's get into it. I included this image, 1, because I think it's very funny, but 2, because I think it's an accurate representation of pretty much anybody that is working nowadays, but especially a dealer designer. The point being is we are busy. We're in an industry that moves really quickly, and we have multiple projects that we're working on at the same time and lots of things that we're trying to remember. And once we get that project out the door, we're just have that breath of fresh air and we're like, yes, we did it. But we're not quite done yet. Now we have to get it installed. But how do we do that? Obviously, we're going to have an installation team that is going to do the installation for us, but they're only as good as the documentation that we give them or our install drawings. And right now we're kind of talking about the end of our process, but really we need to be looking at the beginning. And like I said, I know that we have a million things that we're trying to remember to do and that we're trying to keep in mind. And now I'm saying, hey, let's think about installation drawings at the beginning of a project. It sounds a little crazy, but I promise you it's easier than you think. So our first section is planning for success. We're going to discuss incorporating installation considerations from the start. I'm going to give some tips on things that I think would be helpful to start thinking about at the beginning of the process. So the first would be establishing best practices and having all designers set up their drawings the same way. So implementing best practices from the start is just going to save you time at the end of your process. One option would be to work in blocks or component blocks if they're available to you. The reason being is modifications made in one block will affect all of your blocks. So think of storage, task seating, desk accessories, things like that. It's so much easier to have to change it once or twice than having to go through an entire floor plate and change task chairs in 2, 3, 4, 500 stations. Another good reason for using blocks specific to installation drawings would be when you are trying to adjust your tags. So on the right here, I provided an image of what I think a lot of us have seen before when you turn your tags on in paper space and a lot of them are overlapping and really difficult to read. But the beauty of working within a block is that once you change those tag locations, you can go from this to this really quickly. If you move your tags around in one block, it'll be moved in all of your blocks, and it's just more legible, easy to read. It just makes everything a little bit easier for everyone. My next suggestion is going to be making annotations, callouts, and notes while you're working. So an example of this would be a cut to fit surface, making sure you're denoting that as you work through the design process. Or if you're reusing existing parts and pieces, make sure that that is also noted on there. This has an added bonus because if you have a designer that has to go in this drawing, if you're not there, they have a better idea of what's going on. But also it's just one less step, one less thing you have to think about. And then it also eliminates the possibility of you forgetting these items at the end when you're trying to work on your installation drawings. Another consideration would be also working within a notes box. So this is building off of that previous example that I showed you. In our template file, we have an area where you can put project-related notes. An example might be for a special or a custom product. Maybe you adjust the symbol within CET so you can get the visual over to your customer. Make sure they like what you're presenting to them before you go through the trouble of submitting for a special part number. But you can make a note here that you have to add that pick list item or you still have to submit a special. And just, again, another reminder, and it also lets other designers know what's going on within that drawing should they have to work within it. Another best practice would be leveraging reusable files. So I will expand on this in a little bit, but think of like templates, view settings, visibility settings, paper views. CET has many types of reusable files. I've included these charts from Configura's website. They list out types of reusable files, what they are used for, and where they are saved. You'll get a copy of this PDF presentation at the end of the conference. So I added this in here so you could use it as a reference later on. I also included the link at the bottom, just in case you wanted to go on their website and get a little more information. My last tip to think about at the beginning would be always starting your new drawings using a standard template file. We're going to dive a little more into this in our next section. So if you got it, use it. So template files, if you're unaware, were introduced in November of 2022, and they are really amazing. Templates are the ultimate reusable file. They are a tool used in drawings to incorporate a set of standards. So you can save settings within these files and have them auto load into a new drawing every time you open it. So it also eliminates the opportunity for somebody to accidentally overwrite your seed file by mistake. So last year, Kayla Springer from Hendrickson Butler provided a learning module on seed file optimization at the CET conference, and I sat through it and took a lot of the points that she made and brought them back to my dealership and implemented them. So I just wanted to make sure I was giving her credit for that. But she provided this list of recommendations to include in your template files. I'm going to elaborate on ones that I think specifically apply to installation drawings, but I wanted to, again, put this on here as a reference for you later on. Moving forward, a lot of the things that I'm going to point out are going to be something that you have to consider beforehand, and you're probably going to have to take some time to actually set it all up for your dealership. But once it's set up, it's kind of like one and done, and then you can pass this information and these files along to everybody in your dealership, and nobody in theory should have to worry about ever trying to reset all these again. So my first suggestion for template content is going to be a toolkit. Toolkits are completely customizable. But why would we use these? In a lot of the time within drawings, we have symbols or notes or anything like that that we use on repeat. We're going to use them over and over again. And instead of always having to redraw them, it's nice to have a toolkit or a toolbox that you can pull those from. So this will automatically load with your template file. I have all of our toolbox items connected to special categorizations, which I use later on. And I will show you for setting up visibility settings within paper views. The three major sections that we have are going to be electrical notes and symbols, general notes, and then installation. You utilize a toolbox by copying and pasting items from the toolbox into your drawings. The reason we're going to copy and paste these into your drawings is because they're tied to those custom categorizations. It eliminates you having to play with those categorizations or layers kind of after the fact. It's already done for you. You just have to make sure you copy and paste so those attributes are coming with those symbols. So custom categories. Why do we have custom categories? It ties everything together once we get to Paperspace. The reason we specifically did ones for our dealership was because we made it easier for me personally after I set up those symbols to try to set our visibility settings accordingly. But categories, in case you didn't know, are the foundation of all visibility settings. Any symbol that comes into CET has categorization assigned to it. So this is going to help tie our toolkit to our visibility settings, and then our visibility settings in turn are going to be tied to our view modes. And the reason we do this is because it makes it easier for toggling certain information on and off within Paperspace. So on the right, I have an example of two 2D viewports within Paperspace. The top one and the bottom one are both the same viewport, but I toggled on a different visibility setting. Up top, I'm showing components, the component tags, so work surface sizes and things like that. And on the bottom, I'm just showing a panel view. It's going to have where our electrical is running, any electrical denotations, and just show the panels. And this was simply done by just clicking the button on and off for our preset visibility settings. Something else that I would recommend putting in your template file would be integrating preset tagging. This will be talked about again later on in more detail, but I'm just going to do a brief overview right now. Our dealership specifically loves color. We use color all the time in our installation drawings. Another consideration, like if you had somebody that maybe was colorblind or something like that on your installation team, would possibly be using hatch marks instead of colors. There's lots of different ways to get creative with your denotation, but for our purposes, we use color. So within here, I have these 6 preset and pre-named tags. The colors are pre-selected. I have the labeling and the names already filled in, and I have it set so that the background is filled in. And again, we're going to use these very similar to how we use the toolbox. You can either copy and paste, or you could just use the settings within the tag legend. So you'll see over here on the left, we have all of our areas of work already called out with the colors. And on the right is how we would put them into our CET file. So this is all going to be done in model view. This is really helpful for larger projects. It's going to help with consistency. If you see the same colors for the same products in the same areas, it's going to help with installation teams knowing what they're installing. So this is an example of how we would utilize this within a drawing. We would create a cover page that's going to have all of the areas that we're working on highlighted in colors. And then we created a tag legend up in the top left corner. So if over and over again, your installation team is seeing blue, they know when they see blue on a drawing that that's going to be workstations. Yellow is going to be private offices. You can pick whatever colors suits you or whatever hatch marks you think are appropriate. I would make a recommendation if you are going to go with colors to not do something super dark because it doesn't read well once it's printed. But it's just a quick way to have an installation team know this is what I am installing: workstation heavy, private office heavy, etc. This right here is going to be the tag legend that I was talking about. This is auto-populated in CET for you with the tag legends tool. This is in Paperspace. So on your left-hand side, if you go to tools and then scroll almost all the way to the bottom, there's this button for tag legends. And that will automate this legend you see on the side. I'm going to demo for you real quick how that works. So we're going to come into CET. We're going to go into our paper view. Now I already have this one set up in here, but as previously discussed, we're going to come up here, click on your tools, scroll all the way down to the bottom to where tag legends are. I'm going to click that and place it in. And once it is in there, from this drop down, you can pick, if you have any tags in here, you could pick any of those tags. But for this example, we're going to do our areas of work. This is automatically going to come in for you. From here, you can adjust the size as needed. We chose in this example to use the description area as our to label the quantities of what we're showing. You can also fill in the background. There's lots of options with this green toolbox for things that you can turn on and off. Again, just depends on what it is you're trying to show or how your dealership works best. Perfect. Okay. So the next thing would be styles. Styles are a little bit of a bear. They take a while to set up, but what are they? Styles are going to be any of your text, lines, dimensions that appear within CET. So a lot of the time you bring symbols in, and whoever the manufacturer is, they have a preset font and a font size. So then once you have your tags showing in Paperspace, they're kind of all over the place and there's no consistency. Within here, you're able to adjust all that for all the different items that come into CET. If you have dimension standards, such as architectural ticks versus arrows, or feet and inches versus whether you want it in decimals, you can preset that as well for your dealership. So that way all of the dimensioning is coming in uniform. It's all being presented the same way every time. Also great for branding. We use, I believe it's Century Gothic on everything in our marketing. And then we also use Century Gothic then in all of our CET deliverables. Next would be paper views. So I'm not suggesting that you need to save every one of your paper views into your template file. What we have in ours is going to be a blank page with every size that we have, so people can kind of mess with what they need to. But we also have ones that are saved that we can access and import in. But pre-made paper views are just going to help you complete drawings faster. It's going to cut down on page setup time. It's going to help you, again, with a uniform look and presenting the same information in a similar place every time. If installers know where to go to find information because it's always in the same place, it just eliminates for questions and there's less interruptions in the installation process. And the last would be custom visibility settings. We kind of talked about these a little bit earlier, but these will come into play in your paper views. And this is where we're going to take those categorizations we had earlier, and we're going to toggle them on and off for these visibility settings to show what we want to show within our Paperspace drawings. So let's expand on this a little bit. In this next section, we're going to go over all of pre-made paper views and visibility settings, what those could possibly look like, and how you can use them. So this is an example, a very simple example of what a pre-made paper view could look like for an installation drawing. This specific example is for a workstation typical. So if you had like a 2-pack, 4-pack, 3-pack, etc., that is something that you could use this particular layout for. But It'll come into CET looking like this. And with a couple clicks, you can easily get a drawing that looks like this. And you can go from A to B real quickly if you have it set up correctly. So what are we looking at here? There's two parts to this. Part A is going to be all of your view modes that are preset in and are meant to show different items. So your electrical viewing, your panel views, your panel elevations, renderings, and all of these 2D paper views have presets on them. So we preset our scale if it's in black and white or if it's shown color. We have the visibility settings already assigned to it. And then if there's any filters, we have those toggled on and off as well. B is over on the left-hand side in this grayed area of the page. These are just any additional labels and notes that you might use all the time within your installation drawings. We have a presentation page box, colored numbers and notes, elevation labels, location keys, things like that. You can copy and paste them into the white part or the actual paper view and use them within your drawing. Here's a more robust example that we have added in the location keys and the notes with leaders. Again, just makes things quicker and easier if you're always using them, and again, consistency. I'm going to demo for you how this would work. So, once we are in CET, we can preload these paper spaces down in this left-hand corner. I'm going to hit the load button. Now, the way we have ours saved is we have all of our blank pages, and then we have a separate folder specific to installation drawings. So this one is our workstations at 11 by 17, and that's what we're going to use for this example. But you're going to click on it. It's going to load in. Let me toggle this off for now. And the way you use this is by double-clicking within your viewport and going to what it is you're trying to show. So for this example, we're going to do a 4-pack. We'll do the same one over here. So you'll see, again, my workstation sizes, any component notes are up here showing on the top. And then on the bottom view, I have my elevation, my frame elevation symbols, my electrical information, things like that. Here, I want to show my panel elevations. So I'll come over here, center that. Again, already scaled to 1/4-inch scale, and then it's showing in color. We're over here, it's showing in black and white, so they can see if there's an accent panel, things like that. If you already have something rendered, you can pick from up here from your photo lab what is rendered and just easily plop it in. And then this last one down here is for our electrical key, because you don't always have the same people working on your jobs all the time, and they might not know what your specific symbols mean. This is a very simple version. I will show you, again, a more kind of robust version of what you can include. But again, if it's preset up, it's pretty quick and easy to use. Also, I do want to point out anything that's over here on the left is not going to print out when you print this to PDF. So these are just here as reference. If it's not pulled into this white paper space, then it's not going to print. So this example is a more complex version of what I just showed you. Now, the reason that you might want to do an installation drawing like this is because, let's just say, you know, you have teams that you don't normally work with, and you don't want to have just the workstation typical on one page. You just want it readily accessible for all areas of the floor plate. So up in the top, it's very similar to what I just showed you. It's going to have your components and your electrical, but down below, it has your typical drawing for that specific workstation set. Couple items on here that are different from what I just showed you are going to be B, which is the location key. So we like to put a very small kind of snip of the overall floor plan and then highlight the area that we're going to be installing. It makes it easier for locating it when you get on site. Down below, H, we have notes that are specific to a workstation typical, whatever it is that you need to denote. I is going to be a labeled version of the typical, with leaders going to the different components that are supposed to be included with each workstation, and it also has quantities listed on there. K is going to be a rendering of the workstations. J is a call out. So previously I showed you those colorful numbers that we had in a circle with a circle around them. This is typically how we would utilize those. It's going to be a call out for something that's a little unique or different, or just a note you want to draw the installation team's attention to. In this instance, it's the mounting location for a work surface attached storage piece. Another thing that we have on here that wasn't on the previous example is G, which is our presentation page note. We'll jump into that in a little bit. And then notice L. L is that blue color again. And what we talked about earlier, in our dealership, blue is representative of workstations. Another reason we like to use the color, the hatching, is because when we have our drawing set all folded up, once they get on site, if you have a team that's going to work on workstations, a team that's going to work on private offices, you can just look at the corner of the page and be like, okay, this is my workstation team. They get all blue papers. This is my office team. They get all the yellow papers. Just trying to make things streamlined and easy to understand for all the people involved. So some additional ideas and considerations just for speed purposes. So create standard detail drawings for things that are used on repeat. An example of this, electrical parts and pieces. We have a specific table line that is pretty cumbersome to spec, and we always have to kind of redraw it every time. So one time for an installation drawing, I created this diagramming for how the power and everything works. And we save this so that all users have access to it and can copy and paste these into a new drawing, so we don't have to redraw it all the time. Another example would be system components and details. If you have subcontractors that aren't familiar with your systems, you could make, even if you want to make a whole page that you could add into your installation set that describes how each system works, denoting the parts, the pieces, any applicable measurements, or how wiring might run. If you make it ahead of time and you can either make it a page or you can make it something that's copy and pastable in, just saves a lot of time. Wire management. If you have wire management that you use frequently, great way to notate it. This is a third-party manufacturer we use for routing power all the time. I got sick of having to search through their website for the imagery and denoting it every time, so I copy and paste this from here. And it also gives me a reference, right? This was like a clear way of displaying this, and now I don't have to rethink about it every time. My next idea would be including imagery that's already been created for you. So all these examples that I have shown are images that I did not draw. We have access to a lot of resources, price books, and cut sheets and things online. And a lot of the time when we are trying to show or detail something, it's already been drawn for us by the manufacturer. So if it's already provided for you, it's easy to copy and paste those images right into CET. And then from there, you can add any labels or notes that are applicable. But it saves you time from having to redraw all those little details. Yes, there still might be instances where you have to detail it out, but I encourage you to try to find this first if possible. It's just big time saver. This is another example. A customer wanted to know how power was going to be routed in a table, and I reached out to our sales rep and they sent me this, and it was exactly what I needed, and I included it in my installation drawings. So my next consideration would be use your presentation as an installation tool. So I've mentioned this presentation page box multiple times. I'm going to explain to you what that is now. So within our dealership, we're very fortunate to have an in-house installation team that we work very close with. And we went through an extensive trial and error process with our installation standards. And one of the items that we started adding into installations drawings was this presentation page box. It was really small, but very impactful. The reason being is a lot of the times we have a tremendous amount of information in our presentations, and we were giving that to our installation team as part of the package. And most of the time when we went on site, it was honestly in a corner or just not being used. And when we asked why, they said because it was too hard to flip through. There's, like 30, 40 pages, and they don't know what page they're looking for. They're not really sure which information is applicable to them. And if by adding this note, it tells you which presentation page certain areas that you're working on are located within the PowerPoint presentation. And it just makes it super easy to flip through and figure out where they're going and what they're referencing. So depending on the customer, a lot of the time they can request a lot of details and information in their final presentation. We typically follow or end our projects with a copy of the floor plan and a finished presentation to accompany our quote. In this example that I'm going to show, we had a customer who was very, very particular and wanted everything denoted in their final PowerPoint presentation. So each page for each private office needed a 2D drawing, renderings, denotations of all the parts and pieces. They also wanted cable management diagrams for all of their conferencing tables too. So after spending all that time making that presentation, when I finally got to the point of making my install drawings, I didn't see a point in redoing work that I had already done. So this is what my cover page looked like for that installation set, using similar ideas to what we previously discussed. But instead of using our standard tag legend, I created my own. And this is specific to office typicals or office types. They had a couple different office types on here. So I added the area, the type of office, how many there were, and then any notes that were applicable to that typical office, mounting heights for overheads, things like that. I did make this legend. CET did not automate it for me. So unfortunately, I don't have a quick tip for how to make that, but just so you are aware. Next, this is a blow up of what that presentation page box looks like. So I have leaders pointing to the different rooms with the different colors and then saying what page of the presentation that it was on. So again, easy to flip through. I'll show you what the presentation looks like in just a minute, but I will say that our install manager went on site and took our presentations and took the relevant pages and actually put them in each office ahead of time, so that when the installers got there, they didn't have to search through anything. It was all just set up. Everything was tagged per office, so it went right in, and then they had the presentation page and drawings to reference immediately. This is what it looks like. So I had a overall rendering. I had a floor plan with the room highlighted on it. I had a 2D plan. I had a call out of just the basic components. We included elevations with mounting heights of everything. And then this really detailed components drawing with everything from our stiffeners to our hanging brackets and things like that all denoted. So you'll see a lot of information that it was kind of silly to have to do over again in CET, considering that it was already done for me. But I know this is supposed to be about CET, and we are not far off track. So almost all the imagery in those slides that I just showed you were created within CET and then exported into PowerPoint. So little bonus for you is that in case you did not know, you can export from CET into PowerPoint. And some of the reasons that you would do this is because when you export from CET to PowerPoint, your lines are very crisp for all of your floor plans. and it makes it so you can scale them up and down without the images getting blurry. Makes it really great if you're trying to present on a larger screen. Everything looks really clean. So the way you export is, again, it's going to be in paper space. It's going to be that tools icon, and then all the way at the bottom, right under the tags legends, is the PowerPoint button. So you're going to click it. This will pop up. You're going to save it to wherever you would like to save it. It's going to save it as a PowerPoint document. Now, depending on how many pages that you have, it's going to take a little bit. So if you have 25 pages set up within pay-per-view, it's going to export all 25 pages to PowerPoint. There's not a great way to toggle that off right now, so it just kind of takes everything. So be aware. Once you select your location, it'll do its thing, and then it will ask you, do you want to export your or open the exported PowerPoint file? You click yes, and then it's going to open it up for you. And this is what it's going to look like. So something I want to know is your slides within PowerPoint are going to come in at whatever size your largest paper is within CET. Everything will still be scaled to like an 11 by 17, but the overall, if that's what your size is, but like if you had an architectural D size, that size is going to be the size of all the slides. And then you'll just have kind of like smaller imagery that's like scaled by the paper size, if that makes any sense. But each page that you have in CET is going to come in as its own slide within the presentation. All slides are going to match the proportions and everything that, like we just said. Any text fields from CET that export are going to be just like a regular text field within PowerPoint, so you can change the fonts, the color sizes. You can even edit the text, so you can delete it completely, or like if you find a typo, you can change that. And then any viewports you have, or article views or photos from PhotoLab are going to function as pictures within this. So you can add effects, transparencies, borders. You can also crop the imagery or replace it. So it's a really helpful tool. And this is the standard that we do for whenever we need to add these 2D line drawings within a presentation. So the last part of this is talk about it. And like I said before, we are lucky enough to have an in-house installation team, and we use them to kind of develop our installation standards. But the way that process worked was, first we interviewed all of our installers from different locations to see, I guess, what their biggest pain points were when it came to installation drawings. We took that information back and then we did some test projects. So next time we had a project, you tried to incorporate some of their feedback, and we explained how the install set worked. We had a meeting before, and then they went out and they installed. So we got some positive feedback and some negative feedback. And then we kind of came back and did it again until we finally got to a place where everybody kind of agreed and knew what they were looking at, and we were making sure we were including the right information. Sometimes, we were including too much information. Sometimes we were including information that just wasn't being used. So it was a bit of a process. It took a while, but we have a pretty solid standard now that we use, and it's been super helpful for both designers and the installation team. And this is my contact information. The learning module is eligible for a CEU, so please scan this code so you can get your credit. And thank you so much for joining me today.